Week 1 is officially in the books, and there were several breakout fantasy performers in Week 1. One of the most impressive performances this past week was Ravens rookie receiver Marquise Hollywood Brown, who had 4 catches for 147 yards and 2 touchdowns in his debut on only 12 snaps. There were also some fantasy duds as well in Week 1, as Devontae Freeman only had 31 total yards and lost a fumble as well. There will certainly be good fantasy players this week, and that's what we're going to discuss on today's video, as I'm predicting 5 players who will have big Week 2 performances. Before I get started though, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. First player that I think has a big Week 2 performance is Ben Roethlisberger. Ben and the Steelers had a very forgettable Week 1 as they got blown out by the defending Super Bowl champion New England Patriots 33-3. The Steelers were beat in every phase of the game, and there's nowhere to go but up for them. In Week 2, they play a Seattle team that just gave up 418 passing yards to Andy Dalton, who over the course of time has shown he's not as good as Ben Roethlisberger. I look for Ben and the Steelers to rebound after an abysmal Week 1, and for Ben to return to 2018 form, in which he led the league in passing yards. I also look for the Seahawks to start out a little slow, given they are a West Coast team playing on the East Coast at 1 o'clock. We saw the Rams have this problem last week as they only beat the Panthers by 3 points, and as far as I'm concerned, the Rams are a lot better than a 3-point win against the Panthers. Look for Ben to have at least 300 passing yards and 2 touchdowns against the Seahawks. The next player that I think has a big Week 2 performance is Jaguars running back Leonard Fournette. There's a couple of reasons that I think Leonard Fournette has a big game against the Texans in Week 2. He has only played 1 career game against them despite being in the same division, but in that game he had 100 yards rushing. The Jags will also be without starting quarterback Nick Foles and will be sending out Gardner Minshew to start Week 2 against the Texans. While Minshew didn't play bad in Week 1 against the Chiefs, he's not going to throw the ball 50 times and lead the Jags to a win solely because of him. The Jags will look to feed Fournette and take as much pressure off of Gardner as they can, which will only increase Fournette's carries and opportunities to score. The Texans gave up 140 yards rushing to Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray in Week 1 on 7 yards per carry. Throw in the fact that they are on 1 less day rest than the Jags, and I think this is a recipe for a big Week 2 performance from Leonard Fournette. Look for Leonard to have 120 yards rushing at least and a score or 2. The next player that I think has a big Week 2 performance is Falcons wide receiver Julio Jones. Julio Jones the past 3 times against Xavier Rhodes and the Minnesota Vikings has went for 5 catches for 56 yards back in 2015, 2 catches for 24 yards back in 2017, and most recently 6 catches for 35 yards and a touchdown. Julio entered the 4th quarter Sunday with just 3 catches for 18 yards against the Vikings starters. The previous 2 games against the Vikings, Julio has followed a subpar performance for his standards with at least 90 yards in the following games. This week, the Falcons play the Eagles, and in the past 3 regular season games against the Eagles, Julio Jones has amassed 29 catches for 445 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Falcons will want to play significantly better against the Eagles than they did against the Vikings in Week 1, and a big part of that will be the success of perennial All-Pro receiver Julio Jones. Look for Julio to be back to himself again and go for a stat line of something around 8 to 10 catches for 120 plus yards. The next player that I think has a big performance in Week 2 is Minnesota Vikings wide receiver Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen had 3 catches for 43 yards and a touchdown in Week 1 and was the Vikings' leading receiver. The Vikings only threw the ball 10 times as the game was well in hand in the second half against the Falcons, and they didn't have to throw the ball much at all. That will probably not be the same case on Sunday against the division rival Packers, as the Vikings play them in Lambeau. Last year alone, Thielen in the 2 games he played against them went for 20 catches for 256 yards and 2 touchdowns. In Thielen's 4 of his past 5 games against the Packers dating back to 2016, he has had at least 96 yards receiving and has been a big contributor in each game. Look for Kirk to feed him early and often, as the Vikings will certainly not be able to run the ball to the extent that they did in Week 1. Hopefully Thielen gets his first 100-yard game in 2019 and a division win against Green Bay. The final player that I think has a big Week 2 is Cowboys wide receiver Michael Gallup. I fully think Michael Gallup is on his way to his first 1,000-yard season, and last Sunday's performance against the Giants is a big step towards that mark, as he had 158 yards receiving in Week 1 alone. This week, the Cowboys play the Redskins, a team that gave up 313 yards through the air last week and 3 passing touchdowns as well. Deshaun Jackson lit up the Redskins defense, and I think Gallup has the potential to do the same. He's a good player coming off of a good game and should continue that into Week 2. He had an 80-yard game against the Redskins last year, and I don't think there's reason to believe he can't get at least that again. I like Gallup a lot and look for him to get into the end zone for the first time in 2019, of what would be just the third time in his career, as he had only 2 touchdowns as a rookie. My predicted stat line for Gallup is 6 catches for 110 yards and a touchdown in a Cowboys win. That's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed watching, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Again, thank you for watching, and have a great day.